Morning, morning. Good to be together again. My name's Joel. It's an absolute joy and a delight to be together, and I'm really glad that you're here. We're starting a brand new series this week, and I get the joy or pleasure of just being able to kick it off, and then the rest of the team are going to take all of the next week. So I'm really excited about this. Just by way of context, if you're new to New Life Church or haven't been with us before, just by way of context, one thing to make you aware of is this series that we're doing now is building on something that we've just finished. So we just finished looking last month at what the local church, so dreams for the local church. And the only way the local church works is through people, right? The local church is about people more than it is about programs or places. It's people. It's people. But the only way it works is through relationships. So this series is directly building on what we've just finished looking at with the dream of the local church. So if you've missed that and you want to go back on it, you can catch it on YouTube. Go on to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can catch all of the previous content about that. So this is just kind of building on as we continue to journey and develop what it means to be a local church. And the only way the world knows that we're followers of Jesus is how we treat one another and how we work together. So it's building, it's sort of a going straight off of that one. So we're looking at relationships. So what do I mean when we say relationships? Okay. First, to put it out there, we have to be clear, we're not just talking romantic relationships. Sometimes we say relationships and it's just like, boyfriend, girlfriend, and it's all romantic. And no, so let's be very clear. If you're single, you are fully complete. You're not a half person because you're not in a relationship, okay? You are fully complete, fully called, fully gifted, fully there. So when we say relationships, the definition of a relationship is two or more people who are connected or behave towards each other. So it could be family, your siblings, your parents, your aunts, uncles, grandparents, neighbors. It could be colleagues, people that you work for or work with, or people that work under you, or people that you report to, all various levels. It could be your neighbor. It could be people that you occasionally see. It could be people that you go to school with, people that you've grown up with. So relationships is any two or more people, because you can't really have a relationship by yourself, right? Yeah. So it's a connection between you and another person. That's the broadest definition of relationships. And so hopefully, we all know what relationships are. Now, we've all probably experienced relationships that haven't gone very well. Maybe a friend let you down, or maybe someone at work, or someone even in your own family. But hopefully, you've also experienced people that have treated us really, really well. And you've had relationships that actually have invigorated you or inspired you, I had a youth group leader growing up, and they were incredibly formative for me. They believed in me as a young gangly teenager, and just, stretched me, believed in me, challenged me, developed me. Hopefully we've all also experienced different relationships in our lives where somebody lifts us somehow, invigorates us, challenges us, helps us grow. And as I said, over the next 5 weeks, we're just going to dig into it. But I want to lay a foundation. I want to talk about two reasons, firstly, why we're actually looking at relationships. And the first reason that we're going to look at relationships is because the relationships affect me, okay? Relationships affect you, okay? Relationships affect you individually. Relationships affect you. And this is pretty cool. You can get a TED Talk on this one. They did a TED Talk a couple years ago. But in 1938, Harvard, you might have heard about this study, Harvard did a research, the adult development program. And they basically gathered a group of people, on 724 people, and they began to do a decades-long study on happiness and well-being, if you like. And every 2 years, they'd interview the delegates and their circle of sort of friends and family. And they carried on researching with them. And here's what they found. This is crazy. After decades of research across a broad spectrum of economic and social and ethnic backgrounds, this is what they found. They said this: close relationships, more than money or fame, are what keep people happy throughout their lives. And those ties protect people from life's discontents They help delay mental and physical decline and are better predictors of long and happy lives. You want to learn how to lie well? Get some good friends, right? No. Better predictors of long and happy lives than social class, IQ, or even your genes. Healthy, life-giving relationships, they found, after decades of research, and some of the candidates are actually still alive today, they found that indicator alone is the biggest indicator on health and life, in happiness in life. And the thing is, if you think about it for just a moment, you probably already know this is true. Because if you've ever experienced relational strife, it doesn't just affect you mentally, it affects you on the inside, doesn't it? You feel unwell. And maybe even you don't sleep as well. It affects you. It affects you. But the reverse is true. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody who just like lifted your spirits? And it was just like having spent time with them. It was just like this breath of fresh air, this gift of joy. It just was like, when you're with them, it's just like, it's like, you know what? You love the fact that they're in your team because you can do anything. You just feel, invincible together. You ever worked with somebody like that? A can-do person? Someone who's able and active? So you already know that what they're saying by their research, you probably already know this is true because you've experienced it yourselves. They find that the relational anxiety, stress, and discomfort that comes when a relationship goes bad is one of the biggest and most damaging things to your health physically. We don't talk about relational health, but relationships affect you. Relationships affect you. So the other reason we're looking at it, I said there were two reasons. That's the first one. Relationships affect me, or affect you. Relationships affect others. Relationships affect others. How we treat others affects them. And as followers of Jesus, we have a responsibility to treat others well. Now, if you're not a follower of Jesus, you can just like take yourself off the hook. You don't have to follow what Jesus says for how you should treat people. See, if you're not a follower of Jesus, you can do whatever your colleagues say. You can do whatever your friends at school say. You can do whatever your friends at university say. You can do whatever Google says. You can do whatever books or whatever Selling Sunset or Keeping Up with the Kardashians or whatever you want to go to find your way to live life and treat people. You can follow whatever guideline you want. You can just follow your own rules if you want. But if you are a follower of Jesus, you have to follow what Jesus says. So if you're a follower of Jesus, we have a responsibility to treat others well. We have a responsibility to treat people differently and better than what they experience in any other setting. Their lives should be better because of us, shouldn't they? We are called to treat people the way Jesus treated us. That's our instruction. That's our instruction. And the way we treat people, believe it or not, you probably already know this is true actually, it either validates or it invalidates the love of God. It either proves it or disproves it. It makes it real or it makes it a sham. In 1 John 4, he writes, he says, how can you say that you love God who you can't even see? Because let's be honest, okay, I don't see Jesus. I don't see God right now. I don't see him. I can see you. You're wearing a maroon top, right? Yeah, I can see people. We've got black, we got a gray top. I can see you physically. I can't see God. And he says in 1 John writes, he says, so how can you claim to love God who you really, let's be honest, you can't physically see? But then you hate your brother or sister who you physically can see. You're a liar. The love of God's not actually in you. See, you're a liar. I mean, it's pretty harsh words, isn't it? You're full of it, right? Man, you're full of it. If you say that you love God who you can't see, but you hate your brother or sister who you can see, then you're a liar, and the love of God is not even in you. So therefore, the way we love others either validates or invalidates the love of God. It either proves or disproves the love of God. It either makes it real or makes it a sham. And that's why it's important for us as followers of Jesus to treat others the way Jesus treated us. And as a local church, isn't that who we want to be? We want to be people who, when people encounter us, when we're gathered or when they're out in our workplaces or out in our fields of work and fields of life, when people encounter us, we want us to be living proof that Jesus is real. That's really what we want, isn't it? We want to invalidate it. I mean, that's who we want to be. We want to validate it. We want people to know this isn't a sham, this is real. This isn't false. This is something worth believing in. This is who we want to be. We want to be known as a place that treats people with respect and care, that we do what we say we're going to do. Isn't that what we want to be? You know, these are the qualities that we really want. We want to honor one another, that we love and forgive, and we hope that people see and experience Jesus through our relationships, because that's the only way they see it. That's the biggest way they see it, I should say. God can reveal himself to people in lots of different ways, but the method he always chooses is through people. It's through people. And whatever stage your relationships are, we go through different seasons, we go through different ups and downs, but overall, I think all of us, whether we're followers of Jesus or not, all of us want to get it right, don't we? It's such a big, important area in our lives. We've just talked about how it affects us physically and mentally, and it's an indicator of our own well-being. We want to get it right. And the more we get it right, then the better everyone is for it. Sometimes relationships are like choppy waves, yeah? Sometimes it's like smooth sailing. Sometimes it's like uncharted waters, and sometimes it's like the ride of your life. You know, and that's the journey of relationships. And I'm sure, I'm guessing, I'm assuming this about you, we all want to get it right. But sometimes we need help in getting it better, so how do we navigate relationships? How do we navigate this melee? You know, who do we speak to? Do we speak to a friend? Do we speak to a colleague? You know, how do we get it better? Do we reach out? Do we look online? Do we watch TV? Do we watch programs? Do we Google it? Do we get books? You know, we do something to try to improve it in our lives, don't we? I mean, that's what people do. That's what our colleagues do. You've seen it. You've experienced it. And who do you speak to? You know, who do you speak to? And speaking to someone can feel good, but if they're not part of the solution, it's a pointless conversation. Speaking to somebody can make you feel good, but if they're not really part of the solution, it's not really a profitable conversation. It's like taking a little bit of steam off, but not dealing with the issue. So if we're going to speak about things, we've got to learn to navigate relationships in a healthy way and find people to speak to that are part of the solution, that are part of the team that's going to make it better. Does that make sense? If we want to move things better, how do we do that? Well, that's how we do it. And I think, here's what we need to do. Let's look at how Jesus treated people. Let's take that as our broad foundation and think, okay, how did he do it? So I'm going to look at some ways that Jesus related to others. Now, we have found that this is just like incredible. Believe it or not, this here, this is the first selfie of Jesus, yeah? They just found it. I couldn't believe it, just look online and you can find that, it's on the internet, so it's true, right? I thought they only had stones that they sort of chiseled it in, but oh my gosh, yeah. So this is the first selfie. Let's look at how Jesus hung out with people. Let's look at how Jesus treated friends. Let's look at how Jesus treated others, how he had relationships. And if we look at the life of Jesus, the first thing we know is relationships do have limits, don't they? You can't be close friends with everybody. It's physically, socially, emotionally, mentally impossible, okay? You do not have to be best friends with everybody. We know that there were 72 disciples. We know that there was a circle of 12 disciples. And we know that out of those 12, that there were 3, Peter, James, and John, who did the most stuff with Jesus. So even looking at, just quickly looking at the life of Jesus, we know that he had relationships that were wider and relationships that were closer. So you just let yourself go from that expectation and obligation to be best friends with everybody. You can't, you don't worry about it. Okay, you have circles of friendships. So don't worry about it. And you've got different types of relationships as well. So here's what I mean. What about if your computer breaks or your Wi-Fi is not working at home? You obviously do not call me, okay? You need to call somebody who understands how these things work, okay? And if your car breaks down as well, don't call me for that either, please, okay? Who in your life do you call when you need help with something? Okay, who's the friend that you think, I've got a spare ticket to this concert. We got 2 tickets to this festival. Who am I going to bring? That's the person you think that's the one I want to bring. That's the one I like. That's my fun friend. That's the one I like to hang out with. Or who's the person that you ring when life has just hit the fan and everything's fallen apart and you don't know where to turn to, where to go, and you're just breaking. Who's that friend? You see, we have different types of relationships and different experiences with different people, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be the same person that has to fix your Wi-Fi, to go to your concerts, to be there every time you're sad, and to be there to have fun with you. It doesn't have to be the same person. It's okay to have different types of friends. And sociologists tell us it's healthy to have different types of friends for different types of expectations and different types of needs. So we've got different circles of friends and different experiences of those relationships. So can I find in the life of Jesus some foundations? Knowing that we have got different circles, wider and more narrow, different people for different experiences and different moments, can I find some principles in the life of Jesus to say, well, this is how he treated everybody, regardless of whether they were out here kind of friends or in here kind of friends? Can we find some principles? And so that's what we're going to do. How can we find some principles? Are there things that he did that were consistent in how he treated people, regardless of the level of relationship? And did Jesus take these principles and turn them into practices? So here's what I mean. We got to look at what a principle is first. There's lots of definitions today, isn't it? It's not always like this. Here's what a principle is. A principle is your fundamental belief, and it guides your choices and behaviors. It helps guide. Your principle doesn't make your choices for you. Your principle is just your underlying sort of belief, perspective, worldview, if you like. You might have a teacher, let's just say a teacher in an education system, and he or she has a principle of treating every child fairly. It's a really good principle, isn't it? But just because they have that principle doesn't mean they actually do anything about it. That might be their principle, but that might not actually be how they really treat people. So therefore, you need a practice to go along with your principle. And your practices are the choices and behaviors, what you actually do. So your principle is the foundation that helps guide you, but your practice is what you actually do about it. And you need to have both of those things, principles and practices. So if our teacher has a principle of treating every child fairly, and they put that into practice, that means they treat every child with fairness and respect and dignity. But what if a teacher, and maybe you've seen this happen in your school, maybe what if a teacher or a colleague, they say they have a principle of treating people fairly, but for whatever reason, there's a particular person that they're just not the same with. And maybe it's their skin color, or maybe it's their accent, maybe it's their personality. You know, because you've seen it happen, or maybe you've experienced it yourself. They say one thing, but they do something differently. That's when your principle and your practice don't match up, or your belief and your behavior don't match. Same as saying we love God, but we mistreat people. It doesn't match. And you've experienced it when it doesn't match, right? You've seen it when it doesn't match. Our world is full of examples when people mistreat one another for stupid reasons. And it's horrible. So principles without practices are pointless. Principles without practices are totally pointless. Right. All of that to say, let's move in to looking at the life of Jesus and see if we can find some principles, some ways that governed how he treated everybody, and did those principles turn into practices, because if they didn't turn into practices, then they're pointless, and there's no point us even looking at them. Right? Make sense? So here we go. Now these are just some that I sort of came up with. You could probably find some more. This is not an exhaustive list. Read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These are first-hand accounts about the life of Jesus, and you can read them for yourself. Investigate for yourself. How did Jesus treat people? And you could probably come up with some more on the list. But here's some principles as I've sort of put together. And the first one is, the principle is, I will always love. Non-negotiable. I will always love. Jesus treated people from a position of love. I will always love. The most important command, the most important instruction, it tells us a number of times, and it's in Matthew 10, it's in Luke 10, he says, what's the greatest commandment? To love the Lord your God with all of your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Those two commands sum up everything. That's the greatest command. This is what Jesus taught. Now, an interesting thing about the word command there is it's not a suggestion. It's not a recommendation. It's not just good advice. It's a command. It's a instruction that we should follow. That we should follow. John 15:12 says, "This is my commandment, love one another as I have loved you." So what's the practice for I will always love? We have to choose an attitude of love. Choose. We have to choose to love. Jesus had plenty of opportunity to not choose love, yet he chose love. He chose love as his practice. What does love require of me? How will I behave in this situation? It's not going to be driven by how I'm reacting. It's going to be driven by love. Driven by love. Now we're going to go to another one now, another practice about not doing life alone. He had a principle. Jesus said, he lived in such a way, his principle clearly is, I won't do life alone. He's part of community. He's part of a team. And he chose to be part of a team. He was God Almighty, God All-Powerful, yet he humbled himself to be a human and work together with other humans. If you were God, all-powerful, all-powerful, means you don't need anybody. Why would you humble yourself to that point? Paul writes in Philippians that God, who being in the very nature God, meaning he had everything, he had God, he was God himself, but he didn't take it to brag and show off. He basically emptied himself. He humbled himself, becoming a servant, becoming a slave, and becoming obedient, even to the point of death. He sort of emptied himself of all his power to the point of being able to be put to death by the thing he created. He poured himself out to that point. God reduced himself, but he reduced himself to the point of needing people. He needed people, which is an incredible concept to think about. God Almighty, God All-Powerful, has chosen to work together in community and chosen to work together in team. He sees these people and he says, follow me, let's do something together. Let's work together. And then you find when he sends his disciples out, he sends them out in numerous places to go do different things. He sends them out in pairs, he sends them out in groups. He's got the 72. You can read about the 72 disciples in Luke 10. It says he takes the 72 and he sends them out 2 by 2. So here he has a principle that I will not do life alone. And here he has a practice of I will not do life alone. He puts it into practice. You see, this is how he treats people. So what can we do as a practice? We can choose to not do life alone. Sometimes it's tempting. We live in an individualistic society. And you're a self-made man or a self-made woman. The more you can hold it together or be your own person is like applauded. And for you to break down or for you to have issues of weakness is almost looked down in our culture. But you are made for community. It's important. So choose to not do life alone and recognize your healthy need for others. Okay, the next one, moving on. Jesus treated people always with honor and respect. I will give honor and respect always. Always. See, time and time again, and we're just flying through this, you can read about it yourself. Time and time again, those who were outcasts or excluded from society, those who were considered unclean, even unwanted, undesirables, people who were written off in society. Jesus spent time with those people and he dignified them. You read these exchanges with people who were on the fringes and pushed aside and overlooked, and he didn't also do what culture said to do, which was treat them the way everybody else is treating them. He did not continue to push them aside and overlook and exclude. He actually dignified and treated people with respect. They spent time with Jesus and he honored them. No matter what their circumstances or situation was, he didn't talk badly about them, even though culturally it would have been totally acceptable. Totally acceptable. It's the Samaritan scum. The Samaritans were this half-breed. They weren't the pure Jews, and the Jews could talk badly about the Samaritans because they were just scum. And you have this story in John 4 where Jesus goes in the middle of the day. He's a bit tired, and it says he's hungry. And the team heads off into town to go to McDonald's and come back with some food, right? So he's hungry, he's sitting there, and this woman comes and tells us that she's a Samaritan woman, and she comes in the middle of the day. And Jesus talks to her. His disciples come back and they're so shocked. They're like, why are you even speaking to this woman? If you read the story, he doesn't speak to her, he doesn't talk down to her. They have this conversation, which ends up being one of the most heavy theological conversations that took place in the life of Jesus up to that point. And it becomes apparent, like, she's been divorced 4 times. And by the way, a woman couldn't divorce somebody, only the man could divorce the woman. So for whatever reason, she was divorceable. Who knows why? Maybe she was barren. Who knows? We have no idea. We don't know. But Jesus still honored her and respected her and dignified her in spite of her previous experiences, in spite of her previous sex life, in spite of her previous relationships. He didn't treat her the way everybody else treated her. See, Jesus gave honor and dignity and respect always. Always. And this lady becomes like one of the first evangelists. She goes running off into town to tell people that she has met the Messiah, the promised one. She runs to the same place that everybody else had just gone to buy food at. And she runs to tell people about Jesus. Read it for yourself, John 4. Jesus always treated people with dignity and respect. So what can we do in a world full of culture, in our culture, which is so full of cynicism and criticism and complaining, in a world where our own opinion is always right, because it's my opinion. We're so self-absorbed with our opinion. What do we do? Maybe we can choose the practice that Jesus chose, which was always treat people with honor and respect, even if other people think it's okay to talk badly about them or mistreat them or be disrespectful. Choose not to. Choose not to. Can we be like Jesus? Choose not to. Another principle. Jesus always sought to bring out the best in people. I seek to bring out the best in others. Jesus took this ragtag group of nobodies, this disparate group. They weren't, half of them didn't even know each other at the beginning. They weren't even friends. They wouldn't have socialized because there was a tax collector who, let's face it, was an enemy. There was a zealot who was like an intense political person. We might see some of those over the next few weeks, right? You got fishermen, you got people of different skill sets. You got this mix of people that are thrown together. This disparate group of ragtag nobodies who ended up becoming, over time, world changers. World changers. They totally changed. Their relationship with Jesus changed them for the better. Their relationship with Jesus made their lives better. Their relationship with Jesus did not make their lives easier. it made their lives better. And in some ways, their lives were harder. It's difficult. It's difficult to forgive people. It's difficult to love the enemy, right? So in some ways, Jesus made their lives a lot harder, but he made their lives better. There's a difference. Jesus makes your life better because he makes you better at figuring out how to handle life. Jesus makes your life better. He doesn't make your life easier. It's not some magic bow that just fixes all of our problems, but it makes us better at facing life. Their relationship with Jesus made their lives so much better. So much better. So much better. Anyway, moving on for time. They didn't know where their lives were going when they first started following Jesus, but they knew they were headed in the right direction. They didn't know the end from the beginning, but they knew they were going in the right direction. It's the same as us, don't we? We don't know where our lives are going to go, but we know we're at least going in the right direction. And relationships will either drag you down or lift you up. Where are your relationships taking you? Are they taking you upwards or are they taking you downwards? Are they taking you on to better things or lesser things? Where are your relationships taking you? Is it healthy to be around that person? Is it healthy to share as much as you share with that person? Is it healthy? Where is it going? In a world of complaint and criticism and cynicism, is it healthy? Is it bringing you up or bringing you down? Let's be practical. Where is it going? Maybe they pressure you to do things that you think, something in my heart just feels a bit off about this, None of us want to be in relationships that make us feel compromised somehow, whatever it is. Hey, it's all right, just take a few of these extra reams of paper home from work. It's not a big deal. The office is paid for already. Just grab a box of pens if you need pens. Don't worry about it. Hey, here's what we always do. We have an allowance for our food, for our expenses, so just make sure that you always just put down extra. They're never going to check your expenses anyway. Do relationships just encourage you to maybe live better or live lesser? What direction is that relationship taking you? Do you become a lesser version of yourself? What influence do they have on your life? And maybe you need to take a step back. Maybe you need to say, okay, there's a lot of influence at the moment, and I need to reduce that influence. Or maybe ask yourself, what direction are you taking then? Are they better or lesser because of you? Do you drag them down or do you lift them up? It works both ways, doesn't it? What are we doing? And a good rule of thumb, if the conversation isn't building somebody up or working towards something positive, is probably not worth having. Just being practical. So what's the practice? Choose to help others become better versions of themselves. Help others become better versions of themselves. We got one more principle that Jesus did. The way he treated everybody regardless of sort of the level of the relationship, and this was this one. I will forgive first. I will forgive first. Jesus was mistreated by those around him. You just have to read the stories for yourselves. But he was mistreated so much so that the system of Rome and the system of the Jewish religious system, those two systems conspired together to get rid of something that annoyed them. And like you want to do with everything that annoys you, you just want to rip it out, cut it down, destroy it, chop it up. Right? You have a weed in your garden. We want to kill it, right? Okay. So the political system and the religious system conspired to get rid of the thing that annoyed them, which was Jesus. And they crushed him and they put him and they quashed him, so much so that they put him to death. They literally put him to death, literally killed him. But as Jesus was dying and he's hanging on the cross, as he's gasping for breath, as his physical life is going out of him from the people who've mistreated him, the people that he came to help and guide and love and save, he cries out in a moment of anguish, in his lowest moment where he's worn out physically and emotionally and spiritually. He's totally gone. He is spent. He is broken. He has nothing left to give except this: Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. In his dying breaths, he's asking for forgiveness to people you could probably argue didn't deserve it, and they certainly didn't ask for it. They didn't deserve it, and they didn't ask for it. But he offered it. I will forgive first. I will forgive first. He didn't even wait for them to apologize. He just offered it. And reconciliation takes two. Forgiveness takes only you. Reconciliation takes two. Forgiveness takes only you. Jesus offered forgiveness, but there wasn't reconciliation because at some point those people he forgave had to recognize the gift of forgiveness and say, Father, take. At that point, reconciliation. Reconciliation takes two. Forgiveness takes only you. You can choose to forgive whether somebody asks for it, and even if they never ask for it. And even if someone in your life who's already dead and gone, you can forgive them. You can choose to not hold on to something anymore. You can choose to forgive. It's an incredible quote that David shared with me. It was this from Corrie ten Boom, and she was grew up in Holland. And her family helped hide prisoners, and she's written a book about it, of course. And her family ended up being arrested. They were found out when someone turned them in the Dutch resistance, and they were arrested. They went to prison camps, and her sister died in Auschwitz. Most of her family died in horrible concentration camps. Humanity at its worst. And she says this. She said that to forgive is to set the prisoner free, then only to discover the prisoner was you. Forgiveness is setting the prisoner free, then only to discover the prisoner was you. So you can forgive whether somebody asks for it, deserves it, or ever asks for it, even if they never ask for it. So what's the practice? Choose to forgive first. Choose to forgive first before. So quickly summary, looking at these principles, here's the list of them. I won't do life alone. I will always love. I will always honor and respect. I seek to bring out the best in others. I will forgive first. So like I said, you probably could find some more. These are just some guiding principles, some foundational ways that Jesus treated people. He treated everyone, regardless of how close and intimate their friendship and relationship was, or if they were just strangers. He treated everybody this way. And the thing is, when I look at that list, I think, well, it's pretty tough. But then you think, that's who I want to be. That is who I want to be. This is who I want to be. If I'm looking at like a model of how to live my life, it's like, that's what I want to model my life after. Maybe not a celebrity, maybe not a pop star, maybe these things that are shallow and empty. This is the stuff that I can model my life after. This is what I want to be like. This is who I want to be. And then if I'm really honest about it, see, if I'm like this and if you're like this, then that means we are like this. And wouldn't we want New Life Church to be known for this kind of stuff? Can this be what New Life Church is known for? That we don't do life alone. We always love, we always honor and respect. We seek to bring out the best in others, and we forgive first. That's what I want us to be known for. I want to be known for those things. Okay, I love the fact that we try to do the best we can with what we've got. Okay, we want to throw out the best programs we've got for our children and youth. We want to try to do our music to the best of our abilities. We want to communicate to the best of our abilities, our literature to the best of our abilities, of course. But I'd rather be known for those things than the fact that I've got a really good leaflet. I'd rather be known for those things than knowing that, hey, this church is a great place for children. And I love that, okay? I want that to be the case. But I want to be known for this more than the programs or the places. I want to be known by the people, because that's the local church. The church, the ecclesia, is the people of God, a gathered people for a specific purpose in a specific place. That's what I want us to be known for. Can we be the people that know, hey, we don't do life alone. We always love, we always honor and respect, and I want to bring out the best in others, and we forgive first. Can that be our reputation? Is that the kind of people that we can be? Because that's what I want us to be. And the incredible thing is, just like those ragtag, disparate group of followers who decided to follow Jesus, they didn't know where it would end up, but they knew their life was headed in the right direction. This only comes about because of a relationship with Jesus. Because it's impossible to do otherwise. It's so hard. It's impossible to always love. It's impossible to always honor. It's impossible to do life alone because I just want to withdraw. It's impossible to do these things without surrendering to Jesus to help us to do these things. And here's the liberating truth. It's not about behavior modification. It's not about just following rules. Being with Jesus is not following rules. It's a relationship, which means something changes on the inside, which begins to bear fruit on the outside. He does a work in here, which changes something out here. If Jesus was all about following rules, it would be a dead relationship. It'd be a horrible friendship, wouldn't it? It'd be awful. Yeah? You've probably had coworkers or team leaders or teachers or, I don't know, people in your life, maybe a parent, and you felt like you were always having to measure up or do these things. And the more they chop you at the rules and the more you feel like a failure, the more it erodes the relationship. It doesn't build the relationship. The liberating truth when you've become a follower of Jesus is he doesn't hold you to a bunch of rules. What he does is he changes your heart so you could be like him, and then you can live like him. It's the most liberating thing. And he knows we can't do it on our own, so he helps us do it. It's just the coolest thing. You can't do it on your own. Let's not do life on our own. I'm going to help you. It's the most liberating thing. And that's how Jesus changes our lives. So we're going to close. We've got two challenges. One is first for those of us who are already followers of Jesus. If you're already a follower of Jesus and you look at that list and you think, that maybe is a little bit off the mark for how I've been treating others. Okay, maybe you've already been doing it, so well done, awesome. But maybe you realize I need to make some changes in the way I think about others, the way I talk about others, the way I treat others. Maybe you got to make some changes. Guess what? The one who won't let you do life alone is here. The one that always loves, the one that always brings honor and respect, the one that wants to bring out the best in you and is ready to forgive is here. He's here today. You can choose today with his help to say, yeah, you know what? I need to make some changes and you can help me, Father. And here's a prayer that we can pray. We won't do it yet, but in a moment, we can say, Jesus, I surrender to you. I realize I've got it wrong. Forgive me. Help me to be more like you. My life is yours. Thank you. Amen. Or maybe you're here this morning, you're watching it online or you're watching it on demand, and you're not yet a follower of Jesus, so you wouldn't sort of identify in that way. You wouldn't say that that's part of who you are. Maybe you wouldn't say you're yet a follower of Jesus. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're watching this. And maybe if you've been hearing us talk about these things, you've been thinking, wow, that's how I would like to be treated too. I've realized I would like to be treated that way, with dignity and respect and honor and forgiveness and love. That's how I would like to be treated. Maybe you realize you're missing out the most important relationship in your life, and that's Jesus Christ. That's the most important relationship any of us can have, is a relationship with Jesus. Because he thought you were so important. He thought a relationship was so important with humanity that he gave everything for it. He thought it was worth living and dying for. He thought it was worth everything. For there's this barrier between us. There's a thing that kind of gets in the way, and it's just the same thing that gets in the way between everything. And it's a poison called sin. It gets in the way of relationships. It leaves damage in its wake. It breaks everything. It's what's wrong with the world. It's what's wrong with everything. And Jesus knew something had to be done about this poison that just gets in the way and just damages people and builds walls and erodes everything. He knew something had to be done about this poison which causes this huge barrier. And so he came to earth to do something about that, to remove all of that poison. He effectively took the poison of sin on himself. He said, I'm going to take it all myself, and I am going to pay the price for it. I'm going to give everything for it. And it cost him his life. He died for it. That's why he got put on the cross, and he got killed. To repair a relationship, he got killed. The poison of sin destroyed him. Destroyed him. But he took it. He took it. And it killed him. Because we know that that's what sin does. It's a poison that breaks things. It kills things. But 3 days later, he came back to life, thereby proving that the brokenness, the damage, the sin, the poison was no longer going to have the last word. He broke the power of sin and death. It does not, will not have the last word anymore. And even though we experience it, it doesn't get the last word in our lives. It doesn't have the final say. That's why he came back to life, to say, I have broken it and defeated it once and for all, and you can find a new way to live and a new way to love. I can set you free. This is what Jesus did. And God loves you so much, and he has your best interests at heart. And this is the most important relationship that you can ever have. And do you know what you can do about it? The same thing that the followers of Jesus can do about it. We can say the same prayer. Jesus, I surrender to you. I realize I've got it wrong. Forgive me. Help me to be more like you. My life is yours. Thank you. Amen. So whether you're a follower of Jesus and you sort of feel like I've missed the mark in my relationships, I need your help, Jesus, to help me get it right. Or whether you're not yet a follower of Jesus, we can all pray this prayer together. So what I'd like us to do, if you're comfortable doing it, please join me in just a moment. And we'll say this prayer together out loud. And then got final instruction after that. So let's just, if this applies to you, then please, just pray it with me. So, Jesus, I surrender to you. I realize I've got it wrong. Forgive me. Help me to be more like you. My life is yours. Thank you. Amen. Now, if you've prayed that prayer for the first time ever, I would love for you to come and speak to me afterwards. Or if you've come with somebody, maybe someone's brought you, a friend's brought you, or you're watching it online, please get in touch. And here's why I want you to do this. Because we're not made to do life alone. We believe following Jesus is a journey. It's a journey of discovery. And we want to walk together and journey with you, and we want to help you on your journey. So if you've made a decision to follow Jesus today, please come and speak to me, or speak to somebody that you came with, and they will let us know. And if you're doing it online, please put a message online and get in touch that way. I'm going to wrap it up now. Next week, we are going to carry on. As I say, we got 4 different speakers over the next 4 weeks, and everybody's going to take a different angle as we dig deeper and deeper into relationships. So I'm so excited about that. Really, really looking forward to that. So have an amazing, life-giving week. In 10 minutes, please go collect your kiddos. But until that time, if you want to hang out, chat to people, grab another coffee, another drink, or whatever, please feel free to hang out in here. If you need to go, have a wonderful rest of your week, and please, enjoy. So thank you.